When did we realize that the Earth was round? Was it in the 1940s when we took the first picture of the Earth from space? Was it in the 1600s when Magellan did his first trip around the world? Or was it much, much sooner? Stick around and find out. Hi there, my name is Glod and this is Storytime. Today we will discover a simple story about the elegance of science and how it can help us see things we cannot see with the naked eye. Let me begin by answering the question that I posed in the beginning of the video, and that is, we knew that the Earth was round way back in our history. Way before the Middle Ages, way before the fall of the Roman Empire, even way before Jesus came about. Ancient Greeks contemplated on the fact that the Earth was a sphere. Given how many planets out there were also spheres, given how the moon was a sphere, and also the shadow that we cast on the moon was in the shape of a sphere. What not that many people knew back then was how big was this sphere. And this is where the badass hero of the day comes in, Eratosthenes. Eratosthenes was quite the rock star nerd of his time, an ancient Stephen Hawking if you will. He was a mathematician, a geographer, an astronomer, a poet, and a music theorist. And besides that, he was even the director of the Library of Alexandria. Boy, this guy makes us look bad in front of our parents. Anyway, impressive LinkedIn profile aside, this guy had a lot of admirers. As the legend goes, one day he received a letter from an admirer in the south of Egypt, in the city of Sienne. What he noticed was that at the summer solstice at noon, the sun would cast no shadow. It's as if all the rays would be perpendicularly shining on the ground. Eratosthenes found this odd, and he decided to make some measurements. At summer solstice in noon in Alexandria, he put a stick in the ground, and based on that he could measure an angle of 7 degrees. And just with that information, Eratosthenes knew he could calculate the circumference of the Earth. Now, this is where Eratosthenes indeed made a few assumptions that he couldn't prove 100%, but luckily for him, those assumptions were correct. He assumed that the Earth was indeed a sphere, and he also assumed that the sun was so far away that the rays coming from it were basically parallel. And so he calculated that the distance between Alexandria and Sienne of 5,000 stadia was actually a 50th part of the circumference of the Earth. What are stadias, I hear you asking? Well, a stadium was an ancient measuring unit of length, and it was based on the circumference of the sports stadiums of the time. The equivalent to today's modern measuring units is still pretty debated, but our best guesses are between 157 meters and 176 meters. This would make Eratosthenes' calculations of the circumference of the Earth anywhere between 39,250 kilometers and 44,000 kilometers. The actual circumference of the Earth, based on our modern technology and calculations, is 40,075 kilometers. So yeah, not only did he know 2,300 years ago that the Earth was a sphere, he even knew how big it was. I told you he was a badass. Surprisingly though, this information didn't reach Christopher Columbus 1,800 years later. When he set sail in the Americas, he actually thought he reached India. His calculations were way off. In fact, this is partly why Native Americans were referred to for centuries as Indians. Christopher Columbus was a bit of a douche, but he did use science once in an effective way. But that's for another episode. The story of Eratosthenes and his calculation of the circumference of the Earth is way more complex than that. And in fact, he has a lot more achievements under his belt. He mapped out the entire known world of the time, even dividing the Earth into climate zones. He proposed a simple algorithm for finding prime numbers, and he even pretty accurately measured the distance between the Earth and the moon and the sun. I think badass was a bit of an understatement. But what this story points forward to us is the beauty and elegance of the scientific method. We couldn't and we cannot always observe the universe by just using our senses. We can't all fly off into space and see that the world is indeed a sphere. We can't all start walking around the circumference of the Earth and measure every step. We can't even go all the way to the sun and measure the exact distance between the Earth and the sun. But what we can do is to use the tools of science in order to get the best possible answers to these questions. Science isn't just a tool to observe the universe. It also gives us eyes to see the world in ways that can be way beyond our comprehension and our imagination. While we might be blind to the immensities, complexities, and intricacies of the universe, we can confidently affirm what is beyond what we can see. And what is beyond that horizon is a huge, wonderful, and mind-blowing world. A world that we can discover through the eyes of science. So is the Earth flat or is it a sphere? Well, I don't know. You do the math. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you once again for tuning in to this week's episode. Make sure to subscribe, give a like and a comment, and share this video with your friends. It will help us a great deal. If you want to find out more about the story, I have some useful links here in the description, and I look forward to seeing you here next week. My name is Glod, your neighborhood storyteller, and I'll see you next time. Take care.